Hi guys, so I'm here with my June reading wrap up. In June I read 9 books, 4 physical books and 5 on my Kindle. So it was quite a good month reading wise, but very mixed in like how I actually felt about the books I read. It was kind of a mixed bag, more so than normal. So I have everything typed up as always so I don't forget. So here we go. The first physical book that I read in June was The Goddess Chronicle by Natsuo Kirino, and this one I gave 2 out of 5. It started off really strong for me. It's about these 2 sisters. One of them, well, when they're young they're really close because they live on this poor island, and then suddenly the older sister gets taken away and is treated differently. She's given all the nice food to eat. She basically, ignore that, lives a life of luxury while the other sister is still left poor, and it turns out that she's going to become the new oracle, and the other sister is going to be isolated and left to look after the dead. That side of it I really liked, but then it veered off into a Japanese creationist story and I found my interest dropping. I felt it got very I had trouble understanding it. I preferred the more realistic side of it, and in the end I had to like sort of trudge through, so I gave it 2 out of 5. The next physical book that I read was Run the Game by Jason Myers, and this I gave 1.5 out of 5. It's not a bad book, and if you look at reviews on Goodreads, it's very controversial. People seem to love it or hate it. And for me, the story wasn't bad, but like it's about a 19-year-old drug addict wannabe rock star falling in love with a 14-year-old prostitute. So immediately it's hard to read, but that wasn't why I didn't like it. It was kind of a lot of unnecessary swearing. Like literally at the end of every sentence it would be and shit and shit and shit, like completely pointless. The sexual situations in this book are very disturbing to read. Now I'm not a prude, but they're just how they're written is very disturbing. And another thing that I didn't like was the author at one point kind of got all meta and started mentioning his own books and himself, and I don't know why, but I took an instant dislike to it. I didn't like it. And when I got to the end of it, how it all played out and how it all ended, I felt really depressed and down about it. So yeah, this wasn't for me, I'm afraid. Next one that I read was A Stitch in Time by Amanda James. This is an adult chick lit. By the way, another thing that bugged me about Run the Game is that it's marketed as young adult, and I'm all for young adult books tackling strong themes, but this I would not say is young adult. I'd say it goes about it in completely the wrong way for young adult, and new adult, yes. Young adult, I wouldn't say so. But back to A Stitch in Time. This is adult chick lit, and it's about a 30-something history teacher that's just got divorced, and suddenly this guy shows up on her doorstep and says that she's a Stitch. Basically, she will be sent back through time and she needs to mend something wrong with time. So She needs to either save someone or save something to keep time running smoothly. Of course, she thinks that the guy is a crackpot, but it turns out that he's not. And so Sarah gets sent back to the Victorian times, to the suffragette movement, to the Old West, to Sheffield in the Blitz. She gets sent to all these different places and she has to fix something when there. And then there's a romance aspect with the guy that tells her this, called John. It's super cute. I really enjoyed it. It was a very quick read. My only issues, they're not really big issues, but the romance, just, I feel it didn't work. I found it was too quick. Suddenly they're just talking about everyday random stuff and suddenly they're in love, and I didn't buy it 100%. I think the romance needed a better development, and the whole time thing, the powers that be that communicate through email, I didn't think we found out enough about how the whole thing worked, which was a shame. But I gave it 4 out of 5 because I did enjoy it and it was a really cute read. And the last physical book that I read was probably my standout book for the month. I'm totally obsessed. I freaking loved it. And that is Acid by Emma Pass. Now, I read this because it was a buddy read pick for Ryan reads books and Emma Hart's books, and we chose this as our first sort of read along, and I'm so glad we chose this because it was amazing. I'm not going to say too much here because the 3 of us are going to be doing a live chat about it, but I will say that you guys know how hit or miss dystopians are for me, but it was just fantastic. Some things I did like about it: I liked that it was set in a futuristic / dystopian Britain. Like another dystopian I've read obviously is Divergent, and it's set in a dystopian Chicago. Nothing wrong with that, but loads of dystopian books are set in the US, like a lot of books are. I have no problem with that, but it was just so refreshing to read one set in Britain. Main character, fantastic, non-stop action from beginning to end, couldn't put it down. 5 out of 5-star read, highly recommend this. Someone very kindly commented on one of my videos before saying that in the US you won't be getting this until March next year, which is such a shame because you need to get on this because it's have no words, fantastic. So on to the books I read on my Kindle. I read Temporary Arrangement by Karen Erickson. This was an Amazon freebie that I read on a whim because I didn't know what to read, and it wasn't bad, but it's kind of a short prequel novella type thing to a book that's going to be coming out later on in the year, and it's an adult romance about like a nanny falling in love with her employer, and it was good, but I didn't realise how short it was going to be when I started reading it. Literally about 20 minutes it took me to read it. That's how short it was, and I found myself a little disappointed because I was enjoying it and then suddenly it ended. And yeah, so it wasn't bad. I just wish there was more of it, and I would probably check out the sequel that will be out later in the year. So I also had to read, I didn't have to read them obviously, but I read a few books for some blog tours that I was part of during the month, and the first one was Into Deep, and I never remember the author's name, Michelle Kemper Brownlow. Yeah, I definitely had to type that one up. I would not have remembered that author's name. I really did not enjoy this one. It's a new adult novel that is basically about a girl that's in a bad relationship, and you sort of see what they were like as they first got together and then how it breaks down. And my problem with this one was the heroine in it um, was so weak. Like, she basically cries on every page. I don't know why she wanted to be with Noah in the first place. I felt like the pair of them had no redeeming qualities. Um, like, she would dump him, take him back, dump him, take him back, and for me, as a reader, I like a strong heroine. I mean, I'm all for these books tackling bad relationships because they happen and that's fine. But as a reader, it's terribly frustrating when your heroine is so weak that you just want to stop reading. And then she has this friendship with a guy called Jake, and then it suddenly becomes more, and it was just painful to read because it just frustrated me like no end, and I I can't even express how badly I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't, and I don't recommend it, which doesn't happen very often. But a lot of the reviews on Goodreads are extremely positive, and I feel like I read a completely different book because I couldn't stand it, unfortunately. Um, so yeah, um, the next two books I read were um, part of a series, and it was Fall for Me by K.A. Last and Sacrifice by K.A. Last, and one was the novel, and then the other was the prequel novella. Now these I found to be okay, kind of average. I didn't love them, but I didn't hate them. It's about angels really, or one particular angel, and they basically fight against vampires. And this particular angel is assigned to a family, and she basically is with every generation. But she is kind of born, like each generation she's born to this family, and then she'll die and she's born to the next generation, and she fights side by side with her brother to kill vampires. So it was a really interesting concept. And but the problem is she falls for a human boy. Now my issue with this is that the romance, like, they've been going to the same school for a couple of years with this guy, and all of a sudden, because he dumps his girlfriend, suddenly they're in love. So I didn't find the romance to be believable. It was insta love gone crazy. Um, there were a few twists, especially like towards the end. Some stuff went down that I didn't see coming, and I was definitely surprised. So I gave Fall for Me 3 out of 5 because it was okay. It wasn't terrible, and I did enjoy reading it. But the prequel novella Sacrifice, I gave 3.5 out of 5. I found Seth, who is a fallen angel, I found his character much more believable. Another issue I did have with the both of them, like, is this love triangle that develops between the angel, the fallen angel, and the human boy. I was team fallen angel. I was all for Seth. I didn't like the human boy aspect of it. I didn't. I just didn't like that side of it, and especially towards the end. While the twist was good, I was like, but I think I would recommend it if you particularly like angel books, and you would look for something a little different, something that's got a twist to it. I think that could be quite interesting. And the last book that I read on my Kindle was Forever Too Far by Abby Glines. I've been eagerly waiting to read this book. I couldn't wait. I do want to get the paperback when it comes out because I have the paperbacks of the other two books. But this was the final book in Russian Blair's series. And I really, really loved it. I did feel that it was shorter than the other two books, and I did find myself, like, I read it in like a day, and I did find myself wanting a little bit more, but plot wise I loved it. I loved that we did still get Rush's point of view and Blair's point of view. One character in it called Nan, she's Rush's sister, she's in the other two books as well. She's basically the total psycho bitch character, and I was hoping that we'd see some sort of resolvement there, especially how things went down in the second book, but we don't. She's still a total bitch, and I really don't like her. I did love the new character Harlow that we're introduced to. I'm really looking forward to her book, because she's different to all the other characters that we've been introduced to so far. She was quiet and bookish, and I feel like probably the character I could relate to most, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. I gave it 4.5 out of 5, and I also became obsessed with the song that was released to go along with the book. I find myself playing it all the time. Really love it. My kind of music. Perfect. So that was everything that I read in June. As you can see, it was kind of mixed. There were some books that I wasn't overly fond of, and then I had some fantastic ones like Acid and Forever Too Far were probably my favourite books of the month. And yeah, happy reading, guys.